Hello everyone, welcome back to Film Valor. As you can see today we got plenty of tech gear on the table here, and we're going to go over the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 2.5K. How did you decide to get this camera over a DSLR camera for the same price?
Okay, so that's a good question. The Blackmagic camera, I guess we started looking into a while ago, long time ago, right? And when it first came out, it was a really interesting choice. It sort of had, all the elements of, a bigger, higher end, like an Alexa or something else. And they do call this camera sort of the baby Alexa. Uh, it's really high end, and it is a cinema camera. With the whole thing that I was looking into, and actually I went on sort of crazy month long stints where I wouldn't leave my room. I would just research cameras, kind of weighing what was good and bad about every single one. What I liked about this one over, say, like a 5D Mark III was a lot of different things, but mainly the fact that this does 2.5K RAW, and that this is shooting natively to ProRes, and you don't have to encode anything when you're shooting. You can just throw this right into your editing program. Actually, that's become less of a problem nowadays with how advanced the editing programs have become. But being able to shoot right to ProRes on this guy is an amazing thing, and it's just denser. It has more image data if you're shooting ProRes, and then the ability to go RAW is sort of, at least for the next couple of years, for us made sense because it sort of made it future-proof to a degree that we can keep using it for the next couple of years. And then when we get a computer that can do RAW, because unfortunately we can't run Resolve yet, but the camera did come with Resolve, we can then do RAW shoots as well. And you can't do much better than 2.5K. I mean, the next step is 4K, and then now they have 6K and everything else. But that's why I laid on the Blackmagic. I felt like it gave us more room to grow with it.
And what's the price point for something like this?
This is 2,000, and I think it may have gone down or changed a bit. There also is a 4K model. Actually, funny enough, when we were speaking to Alex Ferrari of IndieFilmHustle.com, for you guys out there, you fans out there of that, he was saying that he actually thinks the 2.5K model is better looking and that it has a sort of a better sensor. So yeah, well, I thought that was interesting to hear about as well.
All right. So, like, what are some of the features that you like about this compared to other DSLRs?
There's a lot of great features about this camera. I like shooting. I like being able to shoot to SSDs. I actually don't have one near me right now, but you guys can see right here that there's an SSD slot, which is so much better than shooting on memory cards. Not only do those fail sometimes, but the SSD allows you a lot more room to continuously shoot. You don't have to keep switching them out all the time. And not that that was really a problem on the DSLR cameras, but this guy you can just keep going. It's like a tank, which is amazing. So shooting on those is great. They didn't at first have the ability to format the camera, but now they have that ability straight on the menu, which is amazing. And there's a lot of great features. I think I haven't actually personally shot on RAW yet, which is something else we'll come back to later. But I love the ProRes functions and everything with it. There's also a great setting that can check your focus or your focus is on the focus plane. And a lot of other features as well, including being able to shoot in video mode versus cinema mode, which is great because that gives you a higher, it gives you a greater dynamic range, is probably the best way of saying it. So you can kind of shoot on those quick shoots, like we do a lot of times on Film Valor. We're just shooting on that video mode, which bakes in some color. But what the cinema mode allows you to do is have that greater dynamic range. So when you take this thing into post, it's a monster. It can do a lot for you, which I've seen firsthand, and it's great. Even though I'm not a colorist, you can sort of see how much room you have to move around. So it's great on all those levels. It's really great.
And how did you decide to use this for your feature films?
Okay, so when we first started talking about the depths, right, we wanted to use a camera that was, that was able to handle the shoot, that sort of ergonomically could handle the shoot, that we felt was sort of rugged in that sense because there's so much running around and everything else, and was sort of lightweight enough, etc. And we weren't quite sure at the time if this was the choice, and it took a lot of time and some research and stuff like that. We also were very concerned about the crop sensor because this is micro four thirds. It's not full sensor like your 5D Mark III. or a lot of those other cameras. So you're dealing constantly with the crop. The way you can compensate for that with wider lenses. So we had to go out and get an 11-16 Tokina lens, which I'm probably saying wrong. But we had to go out and do that to compensate, especially for car shoots and stuff like that in tight spaces. But ultimately, this was a great camera for it, and it wound up being very clear to us. Our DP was pushing to shoot in 2.5K, but it was the sort of thing that we realized on the budget that we weren't going to be able to do that because of the hard drive space and everything else. So it was too complex. But shooting on ProRes, and now we've seen it in a movie theater, it really looks great. I mean, it really blown up and everything else too. And even when we were doing the short films on DSLRs and the 5D Mark III, we still saw that much data there that I think we never really turned around and said, oh, we should have shot on a better camera. We never really did that at all, right? So shooting on this and having it be more dense than the H.264, it shows, and it just looks more cinematic. So it wound up being the right choice, I think. It was a good choice. Yeah.
Well, you just had a premiere of The Depths, and you saw it in theaters.
Yes.
Was there anything specific that you liked in a scene that the Blackmagic delivered?
You know what was amazing to me was there was a lot of talk at first about us not being able to handle low light because the camera is native at 800 ISO, right? So this was making it more difficult for us because we didn't have that much lighting and stuff like that. We didn't have the ability to go and really light up a scene like the way you'd like most of the time. So yeah, we were able to get some really great night shots on very limited lighting too, and I think that was the thing that most impressed me was in the crime scene in the movie, and we can play some footage over this meanwhile. But the crime scene in the movie, the alleyway sequence during the chase, and sort of all that nighttime shooting. I mean, there was a lot of scenes in apartments and stuff like that too, where it just sort of looked cinematic in ways that I don't think a DSLR would have been able to. So our concerns were, very quickly quieted when we started seeing the footage, and we just said, "Wow! Like I didn't think this thing could shoot out like that." But it did, and it did in a very sort of simple, straightforward way. So it was really impressive. It was really, really impressive. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, we heard a lot of pros about this. Are there any cons or anything that kind of...
You know what? I think the camera does have its drawbacks. At this point, we've done a documentary on it, right? We've done... we shoot Film Valor every week on this camera. Right now, we're breaking out to a Canon T3i. That's the camera that's currently shooting this, which looks pretty nice. But we're always sort of stepped up to this camera, and as a standard, it's made everything we do very professional looking.
Yeah.
But there is some drawbacks. The camera itself, does not do sound. It just has no ability to do sound. I had to go on a very long journey to figure out how to get a microphone into this, and then there's sort of all wherever they are, sort of all these other cables as well.
Cables.
Yeah, and then you have to connect it, and I don't even know the slightest thing about that, so I had to have other people help me. So the sound element of itself, it doesn't have a sound element. There's no sound. All you hear is the fans. So you can't even use scratch audio that way. You have to mount a microphone on here, which is a problem if you're trying to mount a light or something else. So then it comes to the rigging. The rigging of the camera is very extensive as well. I guess that's to be expected with any sort of high-end cinema camera, but we do have these Power Base Pro X adapters, which are amazing. But you're not going to be shooting for too long on the camera itself. You need to have this Power Base 70 Pro X, something equivalent, which does allow you almost 4 or 5 hours on each one, or something crazy like that. Maybe it's a little bit less. So rigging it out was tough, I would say, and it's so not as user friendly or friendly to your pocket as doing the DSLRs were. So that's definitely a drawback, I'd say, to starting out with this thing. Yeah.
And have you shot on RAW or ProRes? And
yes.
How do you feel about the post process with using the Blackmagic?
Yeah, I have not personally shot RAW myself. Friends of mine have. and they swear by it. They think the 2.5K is great. I believe actually Alex Ferrari was shooting in 2.5K as well, and his movie looks amazing. That's This Is Meg. So I've seen it, and it's great. I just haven't gotten a chance to myself. On the feature, we shot ProRes HQ, which is very dense, you know. So it has a lot of information in there, and I was always impressed by that. And I guess that's saying something, that your camera's, you know, one of its lower settings can still shoot in such a cinematic way. Then you can only imagine what happens when this thing is driving full out, you know, with the top down. So it's a really, I guess, you know, sort of, in short, it's just a very impressive camera. And I would say that anybody that wants to get into feature filmmaking, or sort of having a standard look to everything, all of their content that they're doing, especially for, I would say for cinematographers or for anything else, that don't have the ability to jump up to the Res or to anything, or to the Alexas, I still think, and they're continuing to improve on, that the Blackmagic is the camera to go to. It's an excellent camera, and I can't recommend it any more than that.
Thanks for checking out Film Valor. Check us out next week when we go behind the scenes of Sunset.